welcome back to another episode of Prime Time. I've got Nick beside me, Dad Richard Kairouz on the bench. What a weekend of sport. We just had what everyone was talking about over weekend, Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. The who's who of celebrities were there. Eminem, Kanye West, Ronaldo, The Undertaker, Vince McMahon.
It was the most expensive pop-up crowd in history, is what
was.
Twitter said. But did it live up to the hype? Was it McGregor versus Mayweather?
I think it exceeded expectation. It didn't have. Everyone was thinking it was just going to be a tune-up fight for the Usyk fight that's in December. But Francis Ngannou, everyone's saying he shocked the world. He walked in there with some of his MMA mates. He had Kamaru Usman there, Israel Adesanya next to him. But I think he shocked everyone. No one thought he would have that boxing ability.
Well, everything that came out after the fight was, yes, he did lose, wasn't robbed, but he walked away the winner in the end. Everyone came out and said he was robbed. If you actually watch the fight, he didn't get robbed. He maybe won 2 or 3 rounds, but Tyson Fury outboxed him, and that's what you do.
I don't know if you look at the faces after the fight, Francis Ngannou didn't have a scratch on him. Tyson Fury's got a big black eye. He wasn't making excuses. He just says fair play to him. I think, I didn't expect him. He was very awkward in the ring. He caught me, knocked me down in the third. But ultimately, big win for Francis Ngannou because I think it sets him up. He's got that deal with the PFL, but it sets him up for more big money fights.
Well, that's now another thing for me. Biggest takeaway from that event on the weekend is the sad state that boxing is in right now. People only care about boxing, whether there's a UFC or MMA fighter in there or it's YouTube boxing. They can't draw any sort of interest. And you look at us, we only watched it because it was MMA versus UFC, or MMA versus boxing.
Yeah.
If there was actual 2 boxers, would I be watching? Probably not.
I don't know, if it was 2 kind of known heavyweight boxers or, it's a Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, the 2 of the best of the
You're
best.
talking about the best
You're
of
going
the
to
best.
watch it. Yeah, I know, but that's maybe the most intriguing thing, MMA versus boxing. Nate Diaz, Jake Paul.
But that's what I'm saying. Boxing now can't draw its own interest. It just shows you the UFC is taking that big of a shit on boxing right now.
I think
and at UFC, they've got a monopoly on all the best fighters and they put on the best events. Boxing, it's just too scattered.
It's
too
more
everywhere.
on the individuals. It's more on how the individuals build themselves up on social media and their records. Like Tyson Fury is known as the best lineal heavyweight champion.
Yeah, but I'm saying, not to call out Dad's age, but back in the day when you were a fan of boxing, they had a long list of heavyweights that were interesting, they were charismatic, and they were the athletes of their time that you would go watch in combat sports. Now the UFC's monopolised that. They've got everything, and they're the events that people are looking forward to, and they're the ones creating stars.
But UFC is also volume. They don't put on unbelievable star-studded main events every week or every month. You know what I mean?
But
Even
look
at this New York, John Jones
stars.
drops out of one card, and do you want to buy this pay-per-view now? You can say they're creating more stuff. It's just ultimately on the individual and how they sell the fight. Dylan Dennis, for example, you wanted to tune into that fight because he sold it on Twitter.
That's what I'm saying. But
if you got charismatic people, they'll sell their fights. So boxing just needs more charismatic individuals and not people just notching up wins.
So long as YouTube boxing, KSI versus Tommy Fury is more important than a Canelo Alvarez fight, it's in a terrible state.
Well, it's on the boxers. But that brings us to our fan question of the week. Dad, what's the fan question?
Who should Francis Ngannou fight next?
Look, Eddie Hearn's pretty much mapped out his whole career post that fight. Look, everyone's saying, look, he ultimately deserves a rematch after that performance, which some people are saying he's entitled to a $25 million rematch with Tyson Fury. Has this halted Tyson Fury's match with Alexander Usyk? I don't know. But I think this fight with Anthony Joshua would be awesome because that could set up the winner of that fight faces the winner of Tyson Fury and Usyk.
Well, Ngannou put on a great showing to the surprise of many people, and now that's called out. He should probably fight Deontay Wilder. He can fight Anthony Joshua. He deserves a rematch with Tyson Fury. People have even said now they want to see Jon Jones versus Ngannou in the octagon.
Well, apparently the Saudis have already tabled him an offer for another fight. I literally read that reported they've already offered him tens of millions of dollars to have a rematch or another boxing match there within the next 6 months.
The biggest rumor was he's going to fight Deontay Wilder in an MMA fight. So there's
no way.
There's that many things going on.
He'd snap his legs.
What I want to see next is Ngannou versus Wilder in a boxing ring. Who's got the bigger punch? Who's got the best boxing punching power? I would put my money on Wilder, but I think Ngannou's earned the respect to actually fight another boxer, whether it be in Saudi Arabia or in another country. Let it happen. He's earned now to be the right to be called a boxer, putting on a good show against one of the best boxers of all time. But who would you rather see?
I think he's entitled to a rematch, but I do want to see the Tyson Fury-Usyk fight first. He'll eventually get his rematch. His forte is in MMA, so I think he does a PFL fight first and then gets into boxing. But if he wants to follow the money and make the most money, he's 37 years old.
Short career
So
span
you know he doesn't have really long left. I'd be trying to maximise as much money as he can, and that's in a rematch. That's fighting Deontay Wilder. That's fighting Anthony Joshua. He's going to draw eyes to the sport anyway. So I think it's a tune-up match. Get your win, or you know draw some more eyes, fight Anthony Joshua, and then go for that big money rematch against Tyson Fury. There's money to be made. So the Saudis are willing to pay for it. So
Listen,
I'd like to
I didn't believe Tyson Fury really took him seriously. Like,
Nah,
I
he
mean,
definitely
you
did.
could
you
tell
know,
he
you could
did.
tell. I mean, I'm saying you get someone in there that's a bit hungrier. He'll get knocked out. They're going to make money while the
sun shines.
Sun
Yeah.
shines. You know, because I reckon once he gets in there with a proper, I think Conor McGregor only fought
Mayweather
Mayweather once, and
yeah.
you know, because that's not his thing. You know what I mean?
And once
Like,
you get someone that's not just doing it for the exhibition, not
Yeah.
for fanfare,
Well,
he'll get
it was
knocked
like he
out.
was protecting himself for the fight in December, Tyson Fury. It didn't look like he was.
Well, I think that's going to awaken the beast in Tyson Fury. Everyone's doubting his boxing ability now. If you couldn't match it with an MMA fighter, how are you going to go up against Alexander Usyk? So I think he's going to come out and blow Usyk out of the water. He's going to prepare for this December fight if it's still going ahead. I think that's going to be the one to watch, and that'll be massive in Saudi Arabia as well. So all the big events are happening in Saudi Arabia. Let's go to our NRL rumour roundup. What's our first rumour off the rank?
Rumour roundup this week. First rumour, Michael Checker, the former Wallabies coach, rumoured to be the head of football for the West Tigers.
Yeah, the general manager of football for the West Tigers. Yeah, this just makes sense for a struggling club. Let's just go to a rugby union guy and let him run our operations. I don't really understand what's this the fixation on Michael Checker being linked to many clubs.
Well, Michael Checker admits he doesn't really know a lot about rugby league, and I know when he was coaching Lebanon, he had Matt King,
Jake Friend helping
Jake
out.
Friend doing most of the coaching. He's got the ability.
He's like a manager. He's like a people manager.
Yeah, man manager. Obviously, if they need to be inspired, he could go in there and give one of his nice pep talks before the start of a match. Because I don't think there's much.
Well, that's the thing, though. As the general manager of football, you're supposed to have a wealth of knowledge in rugby league. So the West Tigers, already being a struggling club, thought, here's a great idea. Let's go get a rugby union coach to be the head of our rugby league.
I mean, he's coached Lebanon.
and they
He's a general
did
manager of
surprisingly
Lebanon.
well.
Look, I've never been the general manager of anything. My business acumen isn't that great, but you know, maybe that he's obviously tabled propositions to clubs, and people got raps on the guy. Why is he linked to every club about being general manager of football or being a
don't know.
potential coach? There's obviously something there. He wants to break into rugby league because I'll tell you what, rugby union's dying a slow death in Australia. So maybe it makes the most sense for him. For the West Tigers, you know, they anything can stick for them because they're in the shitter right now.
Like, you can only go up from here.
Exactly
But the West
right.
Tigers had
And
a choice.
who's the alternative? They were talking about bringing Mark, what's his name from Parramatta, the ex-player.
I got no
No
idea.
idea.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Mark O'Neill. Mark O'Neill.
well, I
They're going to
heard-
bring him back for Parra or Robbie Farah.
That's what I said.
Robbie Farah doesn't know. He's not a general manager.
Well,
What's
that's
he
what I
gonna-
said. The Tigers had two options. Robbie Farah, former rugby league great, or rugby union head coach Michael Checker. They go, yeah, Robbie Farah's got no
Okay.
rugby league knowledge. We'll go with the rugby union guy.
Nothing's set in stone yet, but okay, if he's likely to be there, then you know, best of luck.
West
to the
Tigers are
Tigers.
always in the news.
That's why next
Always in the news.
Next in
Yeah.
the rumour roundup, Justin Olam rumoured to be signing with the West Tigers. West Tigers also rumoured to sign Bradman Best, and if they don't get Bradman Best, Moses Sully is also linked to the West Tigers.
And then you also had possibly Josh Adokar being linked to the West Tigers. So essentially, if you're a free agent in rugby league or if you're coming off contract or want to get out of your contract, you're going to be linked to the West Tigers. Are they just throwing money at anyone and everyone?
Well, I think they realise their team is that horrible that they need to sign anyone and anyone.
But Nicholas, you've got to understand, I think they've hit their 30 players. You can only have 30 players. So they'd have to obviously let someone go to bring Olam in. They'd have to let someone go to bring Bradman Best in. Bradman Best, we're talking about 2025.
Is it? I think they even might sign him for 24.
No,
Who knows?
no, he's already contracted
It's
to
a November
Newcastle.
1st. They'd be
Yeah.
able to talk to him at November
But
1st.
all I'm saying is that they're already on their limit of 30 players. So
How are they going to fit these
Yeah,
players?
Oh,
they've
they have to let people go.
they're going to have to, and those guys have got to actually get other clubs.
Well, Dane
We're
Laurie's
getting
probably
late.
already got one foot out the door, whether he's actually, or has he already signed?
No, he's
I'm
gone.
pretty
He's gone.
He's
He's
already
gone.
gone.
He's
So
already
they
gone.
can shed some players.
No, but I'm just telling you because I'm pretty close to their recruitment guy. They're on 30 players. You know what I
They've got
mean?
to somehow fit it in.
How do
But
you
that's
fit
why,
it in?
speaking of another player rumoured to the West Tigers, was Josh Adokar. A trade for him and Ryan Madison fell through earlier last week, but now he's been given permission to negotiate with other clubs as well.
Well, Josh Adokar's manager, Mario Tartak, he came out into Triple M and he said that, look, it wasn't on our side of wanting to leave. He goes,
Parramatta proposed the
He
deal.
goes, no, it wasn't. He goes, he wasn't really clear. He just says the talk isn't coming from us that we want out of our contract. So obviously he's trying to say that the Bulldogs are trying to kind of
But that doesn't make sense.
Tap Josh Adokar on the shoulder. But Phil Gould's come out and said, listen, there's been no talk. We love Josh at the club. The fans love him. He's a leader at the club.
The same way Phil Gould said Trent Barrett has no thought of leaving either.
Yeah.
Phil Gould just says whatever he wants to the front of the camera, but behind the scenes is not what's going on.
I heard Josh Adokar was very upset with the club that they didn't sort of stick up for him during that debacle.
The Curry knockout.
The Curry
When he got
knockout.
knocked
Where,
out? Well, he
you
didn't
know,
get knocked out.
No,
he got knocked out. No, he did get knocked out, and then he got up. It wasn't him that threw the punch that knocked the other guy out, but he was upset with the Bulldogs. And obviously, there's also talk about when he spoke, when he stood with Palestine.
Yeah,
when
but
he
there's
came out and
also,
said
but
that,
I'm saying, but
and he
where
was
would you
told
like to see?
to
Where would you
retract
like
his
to
statement?
see? Where would you like to see Adokar end up? He's been rumoured to the Newcastle Knights. He's been rumoured to West Tigers, and he's been rumoured to, I think.
Well, I don't want to see him
Parramatta.
leave the Bulldogs. He's one of our leading try scorers. He's got a great combination with Matt Burton. I don't understand, unless the Bulldogs want to free up cap space and, you know, maybe they don't like his antics off the field because he's always doing these Curry knockout things or he's very vocal on social media. I don't want to see him leave. But if the Bulldogs are tapping him on the shoulder and they're freeing up space and they just want to plug a winger in from the juniors, then that probably makes sense. If he goes to Parramatta, best of luck to him. But I think
He's not going to Parry. He's not leaving.
I could see St George are very short on outside back, so that would make sense if they're throwing money at him.
Well, so are Newcastle. They lost Dom Young. They need a star winger. They've got the cash to, splash as well. But if the Bulldogs do let him go, as much as I would hate it, I'd like to see them get a player in return, whether it be a Sai Feedy brother or Ryan Madison. They do need a high caliber forward to come into the squad.
Yeah.
So
That's a good saying, Nick. Cash to splash.
I mean, the Bulldogs do need forwards. If they're going to shed a star outside back, Phil Gould makes something happen.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see him stay at the Bulldogs, but I'd be surprised to see him end up somewhere else. What about this in NRL news? The talk of the off-season, apart from everyone being linked to the West Tigers, is Las Vegas 2024.
The launch, NRL 2024 launch in Vegas.
The 4 teams playing in Las Vegas. All the commentators are talking about it. Braithen Nass's still piping it up on his Instagram. Bring on Vegas 2024. The NRL is reportedly set to engage with Tom Brady to promote the NRL being in Las Vegas and promoting it to Americans and people in the US and around Vegas. Is this the right move from the NRL to partner with Tom Brady to get the message out about the NRL?
Well, I mean, who better than Tom Brady to promote the sport in Vegas?
He's one of the most recognisable US athletes, especially to Australians. Probably one of the biggest US athletes of all time to promote the game of NRL. I'd say it makes sense. Just depends. Would it be worth millions of dollars to promote
Well, that's what
NRL?
I say. It depends on the figure that they're paying him, but he's the greatest NFL player of all time. People in America, I think, have now, post-retirement, said we love him. Anything he does, whether it's a corny dad joke, he gets views on social media. So anyone that can, of his caliber, that can promote the game and bring a bit of interest to it, because I don't know, are they struggling to promote?
But what's it going to be like? Is it going to be like the Rock promo for State of Origin and here's $2 million? Or is it going to be, you're going to be campaigning in Vegas, guys, let's get down and watch these guys just bash each other?
It's probably just like a couple social media posts. That's all I can imagine.
Because I'm saying the last time Tom Brady, promoted something, it was FTX with Sam Bankman-Fried, and that went downhill, and a lot of people lost their money. So
Yeah, but a whole bunch of people jumped on that bandwagon.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to be, FTX and NRL, because NRL I think is a lot more of a stable investment than FTX was.
They could get Jesus Christ to try and sell
Tickets in
illegal-
Vegas?
Yeah, no way. It's not going to happen. It's a bit. I don't know what the.
I don't know. Valandis was at the White House. They're selling it, and they potentially could be doing a deal with Fox Sports 1 in the US to be showing games on Fox Sports in the US. If Valandis gets viewership of NRL in the US, I think he's exceeded AFL, and AFL will be playing catch up of what they can. Because they're chasing the gambling dollars in the US.
On an international level.
For sure.
But AFL could just follow suit and do whatever he's doing. He's maybe just setting a trend for the
I
AFL.
think the attraction of the contact sport might
sure.
be enticing to US viewers.
But regardless,
look, no, I just can't see it happening. I can't see people waking up to watch NRL in America. It's just not. You
not a
guys
realistic
have been there.
possibility.
You've been there. You've been around those people. You know what they're like. I don't think anyone in Texas or anyone in Miami.
They've already got enough sports.
Mate,
to worry
yeah,
about.
if people are playing pickleball recreationally and watching it, I think they'll get around rugby league. I think they just need to be exposed to it. It's an exciting game. Let's just give it a go. They're locked in for 5 years. Peter Valandis said the plan is to be there longer, much longer for 5 years. Get this TV deal sorted. Get the gambling money from Vegas and sports books. I think he's got a solid plan in it, and I think that is going to be the key to NRL expansion and exceeding AFL internationally.
Regardless of the price tag, Tom Brady is always worth it. He's proven it. He's been to 10 Super Bowls. I'm pretty sure he can go and promote rugby league in Vegas.
He's got a great brand. He's got a great documentary. He's clean cut. I'd like to see NRL x Tom Brady. It'd be pretty cool to see.
But staying on the NFL, this week's NFL power rankings, we did it last week. And San Francisco's been the big mover this week. They've dropped out of our top 5 in the NFL power
They've
rankings.
lost 3 on the trot.
3 in a row, which pushes them out of the 5. But that puts us now top 5 at number 5. Jacksonville Jaguars making their first appearance in our top 5. They've got a top caliber QB. They've got 2 good wide receivers that Trevor Lawrence always is throwing to. They've got a great defense. They've got a Super Bowl winning coach. What more could they be doing besides win? And they're winning the games that they're supposed to win. They've probably got to beat a good team to really solidify themselves as a top 5 team. But for the moment, they're a top 5 team.
Number 4 is the Baltimore Ravens, flying under the radar again with a win. I think that they're going to be the smoky going into the back end of the playoffs. Well, if they just keep flying under the radar, getting these wins over quality opposition, they can go far.
Their 2 losses this year have been to mediocre teams. That's probably the most alarming thing. But they've got a very talented squad, and going forward, if they continue to win their games, I think it's going to be an underrated team. They're a team that doesn't really have much fanfare because they don't really have many charismatic players. They've somehow contained Odell Beckham Jr. to not do too much outside of the game of football. So that's good for them.
Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, they were in the top 5 last week after coming off an upset loss, very ugly division game against the Denver Broncos. Look, I didn't tip a loss. Was Taylor Swift in attendance? Was she not in attendance? Did that affect the outcome of the game? Regardless, they moved to number 3 in the top 5.
Yeah, not overreacting to one loss. It was an ugly game, but they're not going to be losing many more games like that. At number 2, a big mover, Miami Dolphins, getting another good division win over the New England Patriots. They just can't do much wrong at the moment. They got their 2 cornerbacks back. Jalen Ramsey had a great interception on the weekend. Tua's throwing yards. They got 2 great wide receivers. They're just an offensive powerhouse, and they can't be stopped.
Number 1, our Philadelphia Eagles. People were laughing at us a few weeks ago when we had them in the top 5 at number 1 when they were undefeated. They're not undefeated still, but ultimately they are the best team in the NFL right now.
They can't be stopped. They're doing everything right. They did a fake tush push now, so that's making waves on X. And really, if you're going again to look at potential opposition, there's no one that can match up against them and their roster at the moment. They've still got questions defensively, but as the season goes on, they're more likely to fix that than other teams are to catch up to them, especially offensively. A.J. Brown had an NFL record 6 games now of 125 plus receiving yards. So when you've got the best receiver, the most talented quarterback as well, besides Pat Mahomes, you guys are going to be number 1 for the foreseeable future.
Well, that's our top 5 NFL power rankings for the week. That's number 5, Jacksonville Jaguars, 4 Baltimore Ravens, 3 Kansas City Chiefs, 2 Miami Dolphins, and number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. It's been an interesting NFL season. It's starting to heat up a little bit.
It goes by so quick. It's kind of shame. It's kind of
a lot of people are already riding off the San Francisco 49ers. It's still a bit early.
Nah, they'll still win their division.
Let's move on to Rugby Union. The World Cup has come to an end, but on the home front, Eddie Jones has finally resigned. 10 months into a 5-year contract, he's finally pulled the pin. This is probably the saddest state that Rugby Union's been since they hired Raylene Castle as a CEO of the...
Well, they got embarrassingly knocked out of the World Cup in the group stage, first time ever. Now you have your head coach who's signed on a 5-year deal walk away, who's quit. He didn't get fired. He's more embarrassingly quit.
I think it's a golden handshake deal there.
They gave him a tap on the shoulder.
You reckon?
Well, he's come out and assured that he hasn't accepted a deal with Japanese rugby, which he was heavily linked to.
Well, Danny Wadler said, can you assure people that you didn't have a Zoom meeting with Japanese rugby? Did you have a Zoom meeting? Did you not have a Zoom meeting with Japanese rugby? He just said, I can assure you I've not been offered another role. So obviously he has had some conversations with another club. But I think he just couldn't handle the heat of the Australian media, the pressure of the Australian people, of rugby being... He wanted to make significant changes to rugby, with whether it was player movements and just mass changes. And he said Rugby Australia couldn't provide the resources and the significant changes that he wanted to make from the board level. Now a lot of people are saying that the board should be in question as well.
Well, they've had how much turnover now? They've gotten worse every single year since, 2003. They haven't made good waves. They had a good run in 2011 at the World Cup. But you just look at the Wallabies, no one really looks at them as what the gold standard of what they used to be.
Can I ask you guys something? Could they have won the World Cup if
No.
they kept all the other, if they kept all
Well,
the
I
older
mean,
players? Could they have won the World Cup?
We're
They
not,
wouldn't have.
we're not
So what was the- what was
rugby
the-
savants, but they said they should have at least made the semi-finals,
Yeah,
and
but-
they didn't even get that far.
But
that's
you know,
what-
at the end of the day, like he was trying to restructure.
He was trying to make
rugby
big changes.
Yeah, and I agree with what he was doing. He needs, mate. I'm sick of watching those guys play year after year, and we kept losing year after year, and they just kept picking the same players.
That's why he
It's a
said
joke.
he said out of him resigning, he's hoping
Yeah.
to be a catalyst for change. I don't think that'll work.
I know,
think-
as a fan of a footy club, if my team's getting beat every week and the coach keeps picking the same players week in, week out, I get frustrated.
Yeah.
And I reckon a lot of rugby supporters would say that you get frustrated. We keep losing to New Zealand. We kept losing these tests, yet we kept picking the same players. They weren't blooding in new players.
wanted to
what he was
commit-
trying to do was something
Yeah.
that needed to be
He
done.
wanted to commit to long-term change, and he couldn't even get past 10 months. He wanted commitment from the board, and he said it's like a marriage. If you're not going to get commitment from both sides, it's not going to work out. But if you're someone like Joseph Suaalii now, you've committed to Australian rugby and the next World Cup and the British and Irish Lions tour, are you regretting your decision? Are you considering backflipping it with the state of Australian rugby? Because you're almost committing to potentially the next 3 to 5 years of misery in Australian rugby, not winning many games, being all the sole pressure being on you as the marquee signing coming in. Do they even have enough money for him now? I don't know.
If backflipping is an option, I think Suaalii will backflip. I don't.
Nah.
If he signed with Eddie Jones being the head coach, I think there might be a get-out clause or something where he says, "Listen, I signed on these conditions. These conditions aren't being met. Everything's changed since I previously signed." I
Mate,
might
Nicholas,
stay
I don't think he cares.
Mate, Nicholas, you're the same age Suaalii. You got the opportunity to travel overseas with the Australian rugby
And
team,
getting
or
paid
go and play,
$1.6
or go and
million.
play a game. Go and play a game at Bluebet Stadium, Penrith. Where are you going to go?
I've stated
Please.
previously, but
Please.
if they don't have the money to show up to pay him,
They're going to have the money, mate. They've got.
They're in-
They'll come up.
everything
with
you
the
hear
money.
about Rugby Australia, they're in dire
come up.
financial situation.
I think he's committed to them. I don't think there's been anything else to say otherwise, but I'd just be saying I'd be very, not regretful, but worried about what the next few years is going to look like
Starting to-
as being the sole marquee signing for the
You're starting to
Wallabies.
sound like a desperate Rooster supporter. Nick.
Yeah.
Please.
But in talking about rugby, South Africa did win the World Cup. A very, I would say, uneventful World Cup. New Zealand were probably the highlight. No one expected them to go all the way to the grand final. They weren't favourites to.
Well, they had a poor preparation. They had a loss to France in the group stages. But the World Cup, South Africa won the game without scoring a try. This is the third time South Africa's won a final without scoring a try. New Zealand had a red card. I think it was the first red card in Rugby World Cup finals history. So the game was marked with a bit of controversy. But again, it just shows you what a dead sport rugby union is. That you can have a team win a grand final without scoring a try, just penalty goals. How boring.
Rugby's been like that for some time now. It's built off penalties, scoring penalty goals, forcing errors inside the opposition's.
And I understand in a final points come at a premium, but no tries and you win the game?
It's like
Like,
watching
come on.
a game of chess.
It is, yeah, it is. It's a game of field position now. It's not as exciting as it once was.
The World Cup.
Take me back to the Rugby 08 days where you're throwing it out to the wings on EA Sports and just trying to carve up. And it was a game played with, a lot of ball movement. It's not the same anymore. Not that I watch it that week in and week out, and I watch the Super Rugby here in Australia, but if the Rugby World Cup was more exciting and finals weren't decided over penalty goals, I think more people would be tuning in. And I think that's probably where it is at, why it is at where it is at in Australia.
And again, South Africa, credit where credit's due, back-to-back World Cup winners now. But again, Rugby Union, it was probably one of your more disappointing World Cups, whether it be because Australia bowed out early, but as a result in the final, you've just probably deterred people from watching the sport.
And it dragged out so long. It was such a long process.
long
Went over 6 weeks, 5, 6 weeks. It was too long.
Yeah.
Way
Well,
too long.
Poor stand sport.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting their money's worth there, Stan Sport. Now let's move over to our top 5. We've been doing our top 5s every week. You can catch our top 5s on @the JBK Show on YouTube and our clips on @Picklebet over on Instagram. This week's top 5 is top 5 athletes in the world right now across both women's and men's sports. So it's top 5 athletes in the world right now across both women's and men's sports. This is a fair and objective list of the best, most dominant athletes in their sports across all genders.
At number 5, Nikola Jokic, the current finals MVP and NBA champion. He's won 2 out of the last 3 MVPs. Arguably should have been 3 in a row, 3 MVPs. He's a walking triple-double. Yes, he doesn't look like the most dominant NBA player right now, but his skill set and dominance on the court makes him. And what prevents him from being higher on this list is his, motivation to play the
He's
game.
nonchalant, doesn't really care.
He just plays like he doesn't care. He said this was the most boring summer, one of the most boring summers ever. He just won the championship. But as the stats will show, he's the most dominant NBA player in the world right now.
Number 4, we're going with Jon Jones in the UFC, the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. To do what he did in the light heavyweight division, then go up to heavyweight, win the championship there. He is unequivocally the GOAT in the sport. Everyone, he's the fighter's fighter. Everyone unequivocally says he is the greatest in combat sports of all time, what he's achieved in the UFC. It'll be sad to see him go, but I'd say he's in his prime and could probably, go up against the likes, win against Stipe Miocic and be one of the best fighters of all time in the UFC.
It's a shame that he's injured, but going into this fight, the pound-for-pound rankings had him at number 1, so he's the most dominant UFC fighter at the moment. At number 3, Erling Haaland, the most dominant player in world football. Yes, he just got robbed of the Ballon d'Or by Messi, but if you're looking at a pure soccer player who is the most dominant player in their field,
young, in his prime.
He's scoring goals every week. He just had a double against Manchester United in the derby on the weekend. There's no other player, maybe Kylian Mbappe, who's on his level of goal scoring and dominance on an international and domestic level.
Number 2, we're going with Canelo Alvarez, the Mexican boxer, who I think took Floyd Mayweather's mantle as the best boxer in the world. A record of 60 wins, 2 losses. The guy is a freak. You saw what he did to Jamel Charlo, who's a great boxer in himself. He dismantled him. He's one of the biggest money draws in boxing right now. He's only 33 years old, which means he's in his prime. He only has 1 loss to Floyd Mayweather when he was younger and 1 loss when he tried to go up in a weight division. So I think he's the best boxer. Jon Jones is the best MMA fighter in combat sports. Canelo Alvarez is the best, most in-prime boxer in the world right now.
And there's no other boxer on his level. There's no other boxer that has the star power and the boxing ability that Canelo Alvarez possesses. And at number 1, Novak Djokovic, the greatest tennis player of all time and the greatest tennis player in the world right now. Even at age 36, he won 3 out of 4 Grand Slams in 2023, made the grand final of Wimbledon, which he lost in 5 sets. Yes, he did not get the jab, but he's come back and been the most dominant player on tour since. And as long as countries let him into their country to play, he's most likely going to win that tournament.
No, I think you're right. Even Bill Gates would have to acknowledge he's the best athlete in the world right now. What he's done since coming back to the sport and the run that he's been on right now acknowledges us. Even at 36 years old, he is the best athlete in the world.
And the only player that can give him a run for his money at the moment is Carlos Alcaraz, and he beat him more times than Alcaraz beat him this year. So who's more dominant? It's Novak Djokovic. He's the most dominant athlete in the world.
That's our top 5 athletes in the world right now. We've got number 5, Nikola Jokic, 4, Jon Jones, 3, Erling Haaland, 2, Canelo Alvarez, and 1, Novak Djokovic. Yes, you could have probably made an argument for Lionel Messi. I just think he's a bit aged, past his prime.
It's right now.
It's right now. He's playing at Inter Miami.
If we're
Erling
saying-
Haaland's in the thick of it, in his prime,
In the best league
in
in the
the
world.
Premier League right now. So I feel like that's a fair and impartial list.
Yeah,
across all genders.
Across all genders.
Let's go to our best tips and best bets for the week. The Melbourne Cup is steadily approaching. We've got Derby Day coming up on Saturday, Melbourne Cup on the Tuesday. This is the prime for spring racing. What's our best bets for the weekend?
Well, looking at the Derby race, I think we've got Sunsource on the weekend. But since we're not going to be doing a show prior to the Melbourne Cup next Tuesday,
Yep.
we thought it'd be best to give out our Melbourne Cup tips this week. My tip for the Melbourne Cup is Gold Trip. I think he's going to go back-to-back. I know Mark Zara abandoned Gold Trip for without a fight because he said it's going to be a dry track. Gold Trip's only suited for a soft track. But even with the soft track, I'm backing Gold Trip.
For back-to-back.
Back-to-back, not many horses can do it, but he won it last year. You saw him in the Caulfield Cup run home. If he can do the similar in the Melbourne Cup at Flemington down the straight, he'll win.
Has there ever been a Melbourne Cup winner back-to-back?
Yeah.
Oh, Maccabi David won 3 in a row.
Won 3 in a row.
Wow.
3 in a row. Yeah.
Who's your tip for the Melbourne Cup?
Derby tip, Riff Raff. I reckon it's probably one of the poorest Derby fields in a long time, but yeah, we'll go with Chris Waller and the favourite. But in the Melbourne Cup, obviously, without a fight, I backed in the Caulfield Cup, so I'm looking at him.
You stick strong.
Yeah, I'm still stick strong with him. But my roughie won it in 2019. Chance of winning it again, Vow and Declare. So that's
If he
my
can
roughie.
run home the same way, maybe might need a
He had a
protest
big
a
run
little
at
bit.
Moonee Valley on Friday night in the Gold Cup at Moonee Valley.
Generally, though, for the Melbourne
The
Cup,
barrier
it's-
draw is very important. So, if you can draw 10 and inside.
Didn't Vow and Declare win from barrier 21?
Yeah, but he went to the. I mean, look, he got a dream run, but all I'm saying is he's showing glimpses of his form back in 2019 when he won it.
Generally, though, the Melbourne Cup, it's a 4 to 5 year old winner, aged horse that wins the race. Gold Trip won it last year as a 7-year-old, so there are some outliers. But if you are a smart punter, look for those 4 to 5 year old horses, maybe an overseas horse.
Beware the international horse, Vauban.
I like backing the internationals, but I guess we'll wait and see. We will be on the ground on Tuesday for the race that stops the nation, the Melbourne Cup. So make sure you're looking at our socials. We'll be on the ground giving our tip before the race, our best bet. We'll be trying to take a quaddie as well, so it'll be a big day at the race. Hopefully the weather's nice.
Hopefully we don't get banned.
We nearly got him home last week, Nick, with the Cox plate.
Yeah, I know. Missed the bright side.
Look, to be honest, I think at
Got
Flemington,
done by a nose.
At Flemington, we're welcome there. It's not the ATC. It's not, you just got your letter from the ATC. We'll probably do a video on that as well. But, you're banned from everywhere. Warwick Farm, everywhere in Sydney,
Rose
really.
Hill.
Rose Hill Bowling Club as well. Can't forget that one. But I
that
think in
one's
Flemington, they're a lot more friendlier. The people there like us will be there on the ground enjoying the day. Can't wait for it. But let's go to our EPL update where we go internationally. What's the roundup for the EPL?
Arsenal smashed on the weekend. Won 5-1, I think it was, or 4-1. They're continuing their good form at the top of the table. Man City back in the winners' books with Erling Haaland scoring 2 goals, beating Manchester United, who it's supposed to be a derby.
They've fallen off, man.
They're a
United.
shadow of the team.
There was a time where Sir Alex Ferguson said Manchester City would never be the favourites in a derby. Now they win every single one,
Saudi
which
money.
is a complete shame for the Manchester United club. They need to be sold to a Qatari club ASAP.
Yep.
Tottenham still looking good, top of the table. Liverpool as well, winning as usual. But the big thing to come out of soccer over the weekend, which was just today, Lionel Messi winning his record 8th Ballon d'Or. Whether it was marked with controversy or not, you got to acknowledge Lionel Messi as the GOAT. I'm wearing his jersey because he did win the World Cup, which was his biggest achievement of his career.
Speed was in attendance. Didn't like that as a winner.
But in my personal opinion, I think Erling Haaland was robbed. There's no way a player who broke the goal scoring record in the Premier League, won the Champions League, FA Cup and the Premier League in his first year there, did not deserve the best player of the year. Yes, Lionel Messi won the World Cup and he had more goals and assists than Erling Haaland, but you got to just dig deeper into the stats. Cristiano Ronaldo scored the most goals in 2023, but it's played at Saudi Arabia. Lionel Messi was playing for PSG. He barely won the French league. They bowed out early in the Champions League. It was a disappointing season by his standards. Erling Haaland was the best player in Europe. There's been so many people calling out it was one of the biggest robberies ever, because if you look back in 2010, or when Spain won the World Cup, Xavi and Iniesta didn't win the Ballon d'Or. Messi won it because he was the best player in Europe.
I think because of the social media fanfare about what he's been doing at Inter Miami, plus off the back of the winning the World Cup with Argentina in potentially his last World Cup, that's carried him over to winning his 8th.
It's strictly just the World Cup, though. And another thing that
Nicholas, the World Cup, you've got the best players
Yeah, but
in
it's
the world.
one tournament out of a whole year
Yeah, I know,
award.
but I'm just saying you've got the best players in the world.
And it was already marked with controversy about how they won that World Cup as well. I don't want to bring that up.
No.
But he did deserve it, and I do acknowledge him as the GOAT. But what also sucked the air out of the whole kind of night was it got leaked early that Messi had won. Maybe a week before, Fabrizio Romano on Twitter said Lionel Messi's been confirmed to win his 8th Ballon d'Or. So people just went to the event knowing he had already won.
It's like Dally M betting. They're going to have to start cancelling that.
Yeah, so people already knew the result.
They did.
Sucked the air out of it. But he was very humble in his speech. He said, Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe, you guys could have very easily won this award, but going forward, you guys are going to be multiple-time winners. I'm sorry I won this one. And, going forward, I wish you guys the best. So he gave a very humble speech.
Well, looking at NBA at the moment, the season has just kicked off. Very hard to keep up with. There's games every day. We try to do our fantasy. We're trying to keep up with it. We're taking bets. We're taking points. We're taking rebounds. Who's been the standout in the NBA so far within the first week?
Standout so far for me has been Nikola Jokic. He's just continually winning. Again, Kevin Durant has been having to shoulder a bit of the load with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal out. LeBron James, for some reason, is on a minute restriction. I don't get what's going on
They're
there.
saying they're only going to limit him to 30 minutes a game throughout the season.
But every time he
potentially.
comes on in the fourth quarter, he's lighting teams up to keep his team close. But really, if he can play, just let him play. He's the GOAT. You're robbing fans of actual real-time minutes that you're going to see. But the biggest news coming out of the NBA, first week of NBA,
Dwight Howard was potentially linked to a number of franchises.
Phoenix Suns.
Firstly, he was linked to the Phoenix Suns, but then that was marred with controversy because it's come out that he's reportedly had a sexual assault charge against him.
From a man.
From a man. Now, he addressed it head on, went to social media, went to his Twitter, and said, listen, what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom. It's no one's business.
Where I lay my wood is no one's business.
That's a direct quote. So he didn't confirm or deny the rumours, and he's been rumoured to have relationships with men for a long time. It's just never been really
Well,
addressed.
the first rumor that came out, I think a year or 2 years ago, was that he liked spending time with transvestites.
With trans people.
So now it's moved on to he's actually full blown gay.
Yeah.
Whether it's still alleged, I don't want to call him a homosexual yet.
Yeah.
But that's where the rumours have been coming
Well,
over the
and then
last week.
Stephen A. Smith addressed it as well. Now no franchise would really want to touch him after this because now these charges are. He's come out again and just assured everyone that everything that's happened was consensual. So he hasn't really confirmed or denied it, but I don't see him going anywhere near an NBA franchise if he's going to be marred with this controversy.
I still think he has a lot to offer as an NBA player.
Especially as a centre, like for a team that has a quality duo, you could see him going to Golden State. You could see him at Phoenix as well.
But I think he does need to sort out this sexual
bedroom
assault
antics,
charge.
yeah. There's bedroom antics, yeah. You know,
He needs to maybe be a bit less vague in his responses online as well.
Just tackle it head on.
Just tackle it head on.
If the charges are dropped, maybe we'll see him in the NBA. But till then, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But that is prime time for this week. Best tips for the Melbourne Cup. Make sure you keep an eye out on that. Make sure you keep an eye out on our social media at Picklebet and at the JBK Show on YouTube for our Melbourne Cup best bets. But that's all from us in the studio. Back to you, George.